Okay, welcome everyone to the Library Poetry Tour, the second night and the final night of this tour at the Uxbridge Library. It's sponsored by the Shauna Foundation, and we are grateful for the financial support from the Uxbridge Cultural Council, the Milford Cultural Council, and the Mass Cultural Council, who supports us financially for this program. Tonight we have a slam legend. Rick Mcintyre. This is from your slam days when you were in Worcester.
Yes.
I believe, and now he's slumming in Uxbridge. I don't know how that happened, but here you are. I've known you, my God, it's for a long time. Amazing poet. It was an amazing reading last night, and I'm sure tonight will be just as amazing.
Skip and I met watching the last mammoth die in the distance. Alright, this is called Pre-Show. I have taken another's face to wear for my own, another throat to warble and wrangle. This is acting. I lose everything I am in a different shadow, breathe for 2 points of view, speaking with intention, exit and entrance. I don't know the right thing to do with my hands. My strange face is in the air, and another similar one is on my face waiting. 5 minutes to places. Thank you, places. Breathe. Most of these poems come from a chapbook I have called Payne's Scale for Fossils, and I'll talk more about that. I am not a reliable map. I have never been any one place long enough to feel home. I have been found so many places, undiscovered every time, made of a countryside of ghost sightings and the forgetfulness of years. I am not memory enough to be stories, even the wrong ones. You do not know my name because I have rewritten every signpost. I call the same places inside me by different names in answer to different questions. I do not keep maps given to me, except I draw all over them, placing mystery here, inventing things that are not really there. But I feel their breath and heartbeat both inside. And when I try to give directions to lost strangers, whose only crime is wanting to know something about me that can be fixed in space, rediscovered the next time in the same place, I want to lie to them. I was born too far away from whatever location I began as to be anything but lost. Should you ask me for directions, believe me, you cannot, I promise you, get there from here. All right, odd child I was. I did not react well to this story that everybody else in my class loved. I was difficult even in kindergarten. This is called What the Giving Tree Really Said. The way the story is always told, I was something that just grew into a state of grace for him. My arms wide, a tall body made of gift after gift after gift. In the eyes of a child, I was vast, wise, magical, and endless. I was nature's green arms holding him tight and safe. So at first, I understood his every grab at my apples, hungry climber that he was. He carved love into my body, though it was not love for me. With age, he was enamored with money, and he needed all of my apples right now. I gave and he took. Then he discovered house ownership, and my branches meant more to him as dead things, as means to an end. Never more would they hold fruit or be able to give shade. I gave, he took. Next, he wanted to sail the world in a boat made from my trunk. I was cut deep, but I never refused him because in this story of his, I never could. My only value to my wisdom was in my many gifts. He loved me like take. He only thanked me when he was old, weary, sick, and frightened at the end. But even just a stump, I am still an apple tree, and I have terrible knowledge I never shared. I will feed him cold nostalgia. I will haunt him to his grave. Don't sue me, Shel Silverstein Estate. You can edit that out if that would cause any problems. Or leave it in if it would cause me any problems. This is a poem I wrote after reading this story. This story killed me. There was this blue whale that was called 52 Blue. And it's called 52 Blue because its voice registers at 52 hertz, a frequency too high for normal blue whales to hear. And so it was dubbed the loneliest whale in the world. Because even blue whales, as distant as they are social creatures. This is called 52 Blue. What a nightmare to live and always be so lonely. The last, the first, always the only of your kind. Made wrong in your whale song, made lonely. You leave a wake of sad sounds, your huge voice made small in an ocean of one. One more echo sent with no one able to receive. Imagine the biggest blue room there ever was in all the world. Now imagine someplace bigger. Of all your kind, you are alone in all that open vastness, stretching out in too many directions. If a song falls into fathoms and no one hears it, what chances then for the singer of the song? Until what scientist said the code was broken open by a second cry at 52 hertz, this sound too high for other whales to hear, this longed for reply, you're not alone, and I am no longer without hope. 52 hertz, 52 blue, G-sharp piano notes in tune, double bass, low string, love song, sing not being alone is everything. Basically, if that wasn't clear enough, they detected a second whale at the same frequency, so I just hope they meet and the first whale isn't like, wow, he's a jerk, you know. So I work at the Lizzie Borden House in Fall River, and there's a famous poem associated with her and 40 Wax. And I wrote this first little variation on it, and then it became an arms escalation as my coworkers suggested other weapons that could be. Anyway, you'll see. The Borden Variations, after the anonymous poem about Lizzie Borden by Anonymous. You're gonna have to edit that part. If Lizzie Borden had a mace, she would have smashed her father's face. Abby was already dead with many mace wounds on her head. So the next suggestion brought Lizzie, morning star in hand, went medieval on Abby, and 90 minutes after, estimated, Andrew's life got end dated. Lizzie, with her Scottish maul, caved in the back of Abby's skull. Andrew died around about 11, with only half his skull in heaven. Lizzie, just an hour before noon, stalked her dad with a harpoon. Abby lay upstairs, a beached whale, 40 times she was impaled. Gets worse. Lizzie with a Kalashnikov. Her parents were oddly better off, being hatcheted and axed. Ballistics will back up this fact. Lizzie armed with her bazooka. Alas, she couldn't buy a Stuka. It's the only thing that rhymes. Would have aimed at Abby's head, but blown the whole house up instead. Darth Lizzie flew her Death Star straight, removing Alderaan from space. Referencing Star Wars is a gimmick to show our Lizzie had no limits. Thank you. So, it's called The Moon is a Ghost Story. If I told you a ghost story, would you believe me? And if so, what are the details that would sell the story? Think of what that exposes about you, about the fear, about that dance you do with it. What is my face? Let me start over. The Moon is a Ghost Story. If I told you I was a ghost story, would you believe me? If so, what are the details that would sell the story? Think what that exposes about you, about the fear, about the dance you do with it. What is my face? What phases do I wear acting out your fear, giving it shape, teaching it to walk upright and proud in the moonlight? And on the hollow fear nights that moon means nothing but a minus in the night sky, its white face turned around, dark side backwards, the leering lunacy of my cold smile, the rictus of a dead thing that knows it, is looking outwards, not at the planets, but at the swirl of other skulls floating around them in a dance macabre. So look at any night sky and then tell me I'm wrong, that I'm not a ghost already whispering to you in the dark. I'll get one of these so I can actually read one of them. How are we doing for time?
Oh, good.
So good?
Plenty of time.
Okay. What does plenty of time mean? That makes me nervous. Okay. Well, I'll read a couple poems about grief. This is called Sometimes Impossible is Only What You Cannot Believe. The first recorded image of an okapi is from a facade of the Apadana of Persepolis, 5th century BCE, even though Europeans refused to believe it existed until the late 19th century. The okapi wasn't hard fact afterwards, any more than it was soft rumor for the years of being hidden away from view before officially recognized. May 10th, 1970 is a world away from 1887, just as the Congo is from 5th century Persepolis, but strange creatures do whatever is necessary to survive, despite distances between belief. A young boy in America in the 60s who didn't like sports as much as breathing was a strange unknown, unbelievable. I knew my adopted father felt this way. So I tried my best to show fake interest that looked real, just like my dad did with me. So there I was at that epic moment in history, the last game of the 1970 Stanley Cup Finals, and Bobby Orr made flying reel for long enough to place the championship-winning goal. So excited to see my father be proud of someone. I wanted that. I raised up my okapi toy, said, "That's as impossible as they used to think okapi was." His face fell and he looked at me. Had no idea what I was. I'll do one more and then try to cheer the fuck up. This is called Bad at Math. Live long enough and you earn the vision to see things in their raw truth and feel how change runs backwards. All rude mathematics add up to this. The longer we live, the less there is of us left around. Every time we lose someone, it adds up to how are we still here and you are not. Time loses meaning when it keeps leaving us behind, just short of the hungry barrier of the night. This is the place that takes. The only thing I'm good at is losing people. Absence makes the heart grow fonder, but it also makes it stupid and threatening to grow barbs and overfull of regret. Maybe Rilke's advice to young poets warning them to avoid writing poems about love should also apply when we grow old and are wrestling with epitaphs to make the living feel warm. Tomorrow I will try to write a better poem. Tonight I struggle with my heart's bewilderment, the way no matter how we run the numbers of loss, death refuses to add up to anything that resembles an answer we can understand. All right. How are they on profanity in here? Can I speak in profanity? Is there gonna be any problem for the cable for profanity?
I don't think it would be a problem, but we can always just edit it out if it is.
Okay.
Like we could just like fade it out after.
Yeah, I might not do that one then, because then you'd be editing out a lot. We'll just stick to the pain. People always like pain. Oh no, here's a quick one. Well, it's quirky. It's not. Somebody gave, I made a comment about. Sorry, I just got that word again. The verbs you.
Conjugate.
Conjugate, thank you. Why can I not remember the word conjugate? I said that would be like conjugating the word orange. And somebody said, poetry challenge, which is, the sacred challenge between poets. And I honor and I was amused I did it. That's about as far as it goes. The orange tenses. Today I orange. I am oranging right now. Look, I have oranged. I have been oranging while we speak. In the past, I oranged, I admit. I was oranging. I had oranged quite a bit. It was the 1980s and I had been oranging. Likely in the future I will orange. I am going to orange, damn it. By late tomorrow I will have oranged. Suns will burn out, me still oranging. All you English teachers. Oh, there it is. All right. I'm gonna sit down for just a second. Can you, will I mess with
yeah,
you?
you're good.
Okay. The action part of the reading. He's sitting down. I've been dealing with chronic pain for 20 years now, and I wrote this poem finally out of my least favorite part of any medical visit, and there have been so many over 20 years. This is called Pain Scale for Fossils. The first thing the nurses ask, are you in any pain today? Can you give it a number from 1 to 10? And I want to tell them this is stupid. Our numbers are not the same. Instead, I say a dull 12, a sharp 25, 100 and beep you, 200 and fang. Let me explain. Pain level of 1. This is both of us waking up to feel this way, but what you would call a sick day, I call good morning. Let me put on this body, this curse of meat, this prison made of myself. Level 2, good morning, it's going to rain. I know this because pain forecasts itself, births itself, a phoenix that never ashes into relief. Pain is a place that keeps discovering me. My doctor and I examine charts, discuss excavations. I know my body is a ruined temple because my doctor will only speak to me in dead languages. Pain level 3. Good morning. It is going to rain, but this burns cold. New pain is at least a change. Level 4. I am starting to lose my shape from the rain. Words sound stupid. It just hurts. Pain level 5. This is the unsure Rubicon lurking in every day. The tipping point between must I return to bed or can I keep walking in the rain? Level 6. It is raining. It is always raining or going to or threatening. My to-do lists are written in wish pencil. They have learned not to get their hopes up. Level 7. 18 years ago, this pain kept me in bed 20 hours a day. Today, my body is heavy with coping strategies. The pain settles. Fossils and geologies under pressure. Someday, 7 will be my favorite lost world. Pain level 8. Good morning. It is raining tyrannosaurs and they're on fire. Yes, I use medical marijuana. No, I don't have any extra. Level 9. Rain as doomsayer, as oracle that spits only one word, pain. Rain as banshee with teeth made from this isn't going to get any better. Today, rain. Every day, rain. A life downpoured. I lied. I'm not at pain level 9. I was already 4 points down before I started telling you this. Pain level 10. The joke of 2 digits is thinking of it as any kind of limit. The forecast calls for rain today, all day. 100% chance of rain tomorrow. I gotta do at least one. How are we doing for time? Do we have time for 2 more?
Sure, definitely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I want to do at least one funny one so nobody leaves here and kills themselves. I heard that one last poem, man. Pain. I just knew. There's no hope. Okay, so this one, this is a real life poem. Real life poem. All the other ones were, I don't know, fiction. I really gotta work on the banter. In my late 50s, I felt ready to date again after a second divorce, and being sober for several years, the bars and clubs were out, so I decided to try OkCupid. Now I know it is a lottery draw, but I also know a few really good couples who met this way. So after my friends got through all their jokes about, I don't know, at your age, you might want to think about a carbon dating website, they explained to me that the trick behind it all is massaging the algorithms, or in other words, just answer a lot of questions. So I got ready for the first question, and I'm ready for something very personal, but the first question is straight up astronomy. Which is bigger, OkCupid asks, the sun or the earth? And then it asks me what I would want my perfect match to answer, to rate that on a metric of a little, somewhat, or very in its relative importance. And I say the sun, and indicate I would want my perfect match to indicate the sun, say that it is very in its relative importance, and explain in the comments that I need to know you come from the same galaxy as me. Long distance relationships suck. So content I'm being as precise as possible, I get ready for the next question, which asks me, regarding your pubic hair, do you take any special care in its appearance? Well, I've stopped picking out the gray ones. Does that count? I mean, I don't even know how my perfect match would answer such a question. I imagine it would be something like, what passion noises do they make? Something that I would only know if a match was found, a connection made, the first date gone so well that they say, I don't sleep with people on the first date, so just drop me off, circle the block, and come back and ask me out again, only this time park the car lose the keys. And this pleasant fantasy lasts until OkCupid asks me to describe myself vis-a-vis the lifestyle of the North Atlantic salmon. The answers are not thick metaphor. There is a fry or baby, sprat, youth, mature, out swimming with the fishes, and D, mature, has had children / dead. Spawn / dead. My life in online dating, already the sad coda to a nature documentary, but here is where my perfect match would say, sushi. Now shut down the goddamn computer and let's do some eating, and I would mumble glad praise to algorithms and join them. All right, and this is the last one. Based on a true story I read, this is back in 70s, God. When the rest of the world moved on in 1945, Hiru Onada did not know the war was over. He was given supplies and ammunition, and this final instruction: defend Lubang Island, keep a close eye on the Americans. Do this faithfully until you hear orders otherwise that come directly from me. With that, his commanding officer, Major Taniguchi, left him behind with this important job to carry out, and Lieutenant Onoda did that one task for 30 years. He didn't know that World War II was long over, that he didn't have to fight anymore. Every time I have a drinking dream, I think about Lieutenant Onoda. See, it's funny how the human mind works, but I have one brain cell at least dedicated to recalling his name and story. I'm not upset by drinking dreams because, they're dreams and don't count as real-world relapses. And perhaps another brain cell loyal to a fault was obviously ordered once to watch guard over a vital pipeline, to make sure I had uninterrupted supply of alcohol always available should it be needed, and it always was every day. Like Onoda, this brain cell clings to the last order it was given, making sense of a changing world that left it behind by refusing to give up the fight. When outsiders came to the island, Onoda fired at them, the war still on as far as he knew. Authorities had to fly the retired Major Taniguchi there so Lieutenant Onoda could hear the order from him directly. Onoda handed over his sword, his Arasaka rifle, the ceremonial dagger his mother had given him to use should it be in danger of capture. But he never was. He surrendered instead with no shame. It was 1974. At long last, his war was finally over. So on the mornings when I've finally shaken off the panicked false shame of a dream drink that never happened, I tell that brain cell, thank you. You had one job and you did it well. But it is time for you to stop fighting, to leave the pipeline behind. It is time to come back home and trust that this order comes directly from me. Thank you.
Okay, now we've got time for a Q&A.
Oh, okay.
So you can sit. I will sit too. So I have a couple. First, you are the first poet to have had that's actually done a performance piece.
Okay.
So thank you very much for that. We actually got to see performance poetry this time. I think that's fantastic. Whenever I do this, I always ask, why poetry first?
I was interviewed once by a newspaper, and I told them I became a poet the day the voices in my head formed a theater company. And that's in the Nantucket newspaper sometime back in 2011. So, but yeah, I started writing. I started I think I started trying to write new lyrics to rock songs I liked that had bad lyrics. And then I discovered Highway 61 Revisited, and for a while my poetry became incomprehensibly surreal, because Bob Dylan just, and then I read Anne Sexton and it was incomprehensibly depressing for a while. I didn't know what else to do, I guess.
Oh, that's a great answer.
Yeah.
So, but then how did you then slowly drift from that into performance and slam?
Well, I'd done theater for a while, and a lot of poetry in Boston at the time, this is the early 90s, was, of various degrees. There were some really successful, well-attended open mics, but there was a podium, and each poet got, stood up with the podium and read, usually from paper or book, or very few people memorized their poetry. And then slam poetry came to town, and it was invented purely for the idea of getting people that would not otherwise be caught dead in a poetry reading, because they think, oh my God, you have to go to college to understand it, or it's going to be about flowers, or it's going to be about some other thing. And it was invented by people who were like, what do people like? Well, they like contest. So we'll have an arbitrary kind of Olympic style scoring, but the trick there is that they pick all the judges at random. So you could pick people who are college professors of poetry, you could pick people who've never been in a poetry reading before, and they judge your fate. So it's a great equalizer between the professional seasoned performer and people who get up for the first time. You can see somebody who makes their living touring lose because the judges didn't like them that night, or political poetry, or whatever happened to be in the judge's head. It was just a random equalizer, but it made it exciting to people, and you got bodies in there that weren't just other poets. And then, like everything else, money came into it, and outside interest came into it, and the people that did very well in it, other poets started to sound more like them, because clearly that was the winning strategy. And pretty soon, slam, about the time I left, everybody was shouting and speaking really loud, pointing fingers a lot, and you couldn't always hear the words, much less appreciate any, craft, because it was just delivered at such a speed that as soon as you think about one metaphor, you're 2 lines behind whatever the poet's talking about. And honestly, after a half an hour, who wants to be yelled at that long? So I think it kind of ate itself in the end. I think slam's trying to reinvent itself as less of a corporate entity and more of what it was at the beginning, but that's for the younger kids.
Oh, I did notice when you did your piece, initially I didn't even know it started.
Yeah.
I thought you were just explaining what you were going to be reading.
Yeah.
And I said, oh no, he's performing now. But you didn't, you're right, after a while it did sound the same. There's a certain cadence that eventually evolved,
Yeah.
that everyone used.
And also the tyranny of 3 minutes, 10 seconds.
Yes.
Because originally the 3 minute and 10-second grace period was because some poets were getting up and doing 7 and 8 minute poems, and famously at the finals in New York one year, in a very, very union theater, they went overtime, and the union people working, well, they loved how much money they were going to get. The people running the event were a little appalled when they found out what happens when you don't end when you tell union people you're going to end. And so that's when they said, you know what, we're going to come up with an absolute definitely. But you would hear people read beautiful poems and then say, yeah, but I timed it and it's only 2 minutes, so I got to write more. No, why? Oh, no, because I need a 3-minute poem. And it's like, you know, they came up with this interesting variation where, okay, we're going to have a slam where everyone comes with a 4-minute poem, a 3-minute poem, a 2-minute poem, and a 1-minute quick poem. And that was cool. And then people started, you know, finding out how to shout and talk quickly in 1 minute, you know, so it's like, you know, for a while you were getting like almost haiku or senru kind of quiet poems that let you think about them for a second and then, you know, so, but that was, the last slam I was in was 2012, yeah.
Wow.
I just found, you know, the noise also, it's one thing to host it in all different cities, but the expense started getting pretty major for small poetry scenes. You know, when you're trying to raise airfare and hotel fare for 4 people for a week.
Right.
You know, usually in the heart of, you know, not always a major city, but still the capital city or the major city in that state. So again, it kind of grew too big with, you know, 70 registered teams or some crazy thing like that. So it was just, yeah.
Any questions from the audience?
I was wondering, first of all, I liked your work, and
Thank
I
you.
also liked your insights that you were just explaining about slam. I don't know a lot about slam, so that was interesting to hear.
Mm-hmm.
When did you start writing? Did you write in your teens, your 20s?
I started in my teens, and then just continued from then off and on. I mean, for years when I didn't know about poetry scenes, I just wrote and showed it to my friends, and then I moved to Boston and there were actual poetry readings, and I did that for a long time, and then slam came along, and then I think towards the end of slam, well, I was getting just personally tired of it. For a lot of poets, they'll never do well at slam because their poetry is better quiet and slow, and if it goes over 3 minutes or under a minute, that's what the poem is. And so there were some poets I just saw honestly ruined by staying too long in slam and getting caught up in this false belief that good poets win slams, so if I'm not winning slams, I must suck and there's no value to what I do. And, you know, I saw a lot of people quit writing because of that, and that's the worst fallout of it.
Well, I think as human beings, we tend to validate ourselves by comparing ourselves to others.
Oh yeah.
Unfortunately, and we don't feel like we're good enough in this genre or this genre,
Sure.
or this person has the degree and I don't.
Mhm.
So will I get published?
Yeah. Also, there's a poet, Adam Stone, who brilliantly summed it up. A lot of slam poets who learned to write poetry by only reading other slam poets. And there was a lot of that where you'd ask them like, well, what other stuff do you read? Oh, I'm reading Andrea Gibson and I'm reading, you know, and they name all the big slam poets. But they don't read others, or they don't read anything because they don't want to contaminate the purity of their vision. And I'm like, you know that no good writer ever said that. Neil Gaiman, I've decided I should never ever read books and just write my own, you know, it's like,
A musician that never heard music.
yeah, I don't listen to other musicians because I don't want them to influence my style. Like, what? You know, everyone thinks their style came out of a vacuum. Like, you've never heard my kind of stuff before. Nothing's really that new.
No.
And I brought a lot of theater and comedy there because I didn't write political poems well, and I tried to a couple times, and it was just, it was bad U2 lyrics, Maybe a little bit better than that, but still the kind of fist in the air, sloganeering, war is bad. Like, oh my God, that's a dramatic stance to take in a poem. But that's a lot, a lot of it is that there's, not only are we getting these really one-note shouting, but in terms of any kind of impartial judging, I noticed that poets started to play this card, which was, I'm gonna do a poem about how I was assaulted. I dare you to give me a bad score. Because what are you saying? You don't think people being assaulted is bad? It's like that argument. So people are like, people would boo, the crowd would boo on the score they gave, and you would see the judges start giving better and better scores because they didn't like being booed at by the audience, or the slam creep, or any the score creep, which was the more excited and honestly the more drinks they've had, the loud shouty stuff gets starts affecting people emotionally, and they're throwing 9.9 and 10 around because I too hate the British, fuck the British, whether or not it's a good poem.
I agree. I have to mow the lawn because of the British.
That's right. See.
What is your writing process like now?
A lot of the writing I do right now is historical research and rewriting of bad tours. Because there's a couple tours that were tour scripts from where I work that were written by people who don't perform or storytellers, and they were full of historical information and mostly accurate stuff, but boring as hell. And people don't take walking tours to hear like, oh, this is where there was a mill and here they standardized the size of the loom frames, and that revolutionized textile production in Fall River between the years of 1820 and 1827.
Let me write that down.
No, they want to hear, they say the ghost of somebody whose arm was ripped off still walks, they want to hear blood, they want to hear rumor, they want to hear something about Lizzie Borden, or, something like that, or just, you can have some stuff in there that's, this was a prominent man and he used his fortune to buy this big monolith for his family, this sort of stuff, but by and large people want, sex, death, and rock and roll. So we try to put some of that into the story. And so, I've been doing a lot of that, and I've been making myself getting back into writing poetry.
So that's what I
Yeah.
was wondering, how frequently you write.
I didn't for many years. I got away from it again. I had stopped going to the open mics as religiously as I used to. I just, as, not that it's a young person game, but certain venues, the crowds turn over and they do skew young. And, not that they were ever not welcoming, but when you're, 60 years old and you're surrounded by 18 to 25-year-olds and they don't live in my world and I don't live in theirs, and, again, they've never been like, oh, here's the old guy on stage, or the old white man. There's never anything like that. It's more like, I don't know that I need to take their stage time away because they're young and vibrant and are, this is the new thing they've discovered. So, and also, I have to leave my house at night to go there. And as I get older and older, that becomes a major thing.
Sure.
Yes.
Zoom poetry readings are awesome. This was lovely because I haven't seen my friend Skip in a long time, and I like driving. But I don't go out to one or more open mic a week the way I used to, because that's how you chase it if you want a career.
Sure.
And honestly, as you get older, there's not a lot of money to be made in poetry. unless you want to be with no fixed address and no relationship and just tour incessantly and get bookings at colleges. And, you know, I know people who do that through their 30s into their 40s, but eventually, you know, you don't have health care when you're doing that. You don't have a fixed address, and, you know, that stuff wears at you over the years.
Oh, sure.
I don't think any of them I ever knew made more than, you know, somewhere in the 30,000 range, 30 to 40, for all of that effort, all of that, you know, riding buses or driving or taking, you know, public transportation.
Yeah.
So I did it a few times. It was exciting. I'm good. You know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.